Dubbo is basically the central hub of the West. It's the roundabout where everyone usually passes by. Here in Dubbo, they always make eye contact with you, hoping that you'll say good day to them. It's definitely a good little town. When I first came to Dubbo, the moment I was welcomed at the door, I started to fall in love with the church. And I know that Dubbo has had a big history in terms of the people. When I got to meet them, I got to understand them, and as they continue to share the story with me, I just love their vulnerability. I love their honesty. I love their willingness to change, willingness to grow. And it's just really, really helped me grow a close bond with this church. This group, we're called the Back-to-Back Brotherhood. I was introduced to these two young islanders here in town, came straight from NZ. And, we started talking, and I said to them, hey, what are you guys' thoughts about starting up a Bible study group? And they said, yeah, hey, that'd be great. I asked them, do you guys have a Bible? And they said, no, we don't have a Bible. Well, hey, I'll bring a Bible for you guys next Bible study. And the Bible that I brought them? Well, it was a World Changers Bible. After 1 week, they invited another friend. And then I asked him, hey, do you have a Bible? He says, nah, I've never owned a Bible before. Well, hey, I've got a Bible for you. Went to my car, grabbed the World Changers Bible, laid it in his hands. Now all four of us have the same version. We've had so many guys come through this group, and I give them all a Bible. And now we journey as a brotherhood together. For this kid, man, it's a huge transformation. He said to me, Jay, I came to Australia just to party hard and to play rugby. I never thought in my life I would be part of a Bible study group.
My name is Robert Murphy, born in New Zealand, Auckland. I got Tongan background. Grew up in playing footy back in New Zealand, played rugby union first. I was lucky enough to get a contract to come over to Sydney, and played for the Bulldogs under 20s and New South Wales Cup team. Had a bit of trouble there, got sent back home, wasn't allowed in Australia for 2 years. My manager, like an agent, he hit me up, asked me if I was keen to come back over and start fresh, start a new journey with footy again, and yeah, loving it. So I met Jay when I first came to Dubbo. I was at a pub once, and the security guard at the pub, he was a Samoan bloke, and he goes to me, oh man, there's one guy I want to introduce you to. And I was like, who's that? He's like, a guy named Jay, he's a pastor. He came with Jay to my house, and I met Jay, really energetic, really welcoming, really happy. I told myself I want to start surrounding myself with the right people. Jay wanted to start up a little group called Back-to-Back Brotherhood, talking about having a closer relationship with God. It's been over a year now since we've been hanging around with these boys. It started off with 3 of us. Now there's a lot of lives changed just from this little group. The power of God being the center of this group changed a lot of us. Earlier this year, I was part of the group that went to Converge, to the camp, my first ever church camp I've been to, and it was just amazing. I never had that experience before.
God he's just transforming lives, not just in these boys, but also through them, and influencing those around them. And those around them are now asking, hey, what's the difference? What's the change here?
This group is like I'm home away from home. I want to go out there and help someone else's life. Be a leader out in the community. Be a leader out wherever God takes me next.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sabbath to all of you. That is the proper greeting. So now that you've practiced it, I want you to turn to the person to your right, to your left. Those of you who are here in the audience, wish them a happy Sabbath. I know people are going to start joining online. We wish you happy Sabbath as well. I'll give you another 10 seconds. All right. For those who may not know me, my name is Mike Razon. I am the pastor here at the Corrales Seventh-day Adventist Church, and so we welcome you and thank you for worshiping with us today. As I'm just doing a quick scan of the congregation, obviously we have Corrales folk here, but I also see some people from Rio Rancho, from North Valley and Central, so we welcome you all from our sister churches as well. I do have some housekeeping items I need to address before we continue on with the service, so I'm going to give you 4 announcements, all right? So you'll know exactly where I am at any given point. So, number 1, the most important one. I know our service today will be different. However, the most important announcement is that we do have fellowship meal / potluck. Okay. All right. 5 of you. I'll see you there. Okay. So our potluck team has worked hard to prepare and provide meals for you. And so we want to invite everyone after the service to stick around, fellowship with us, enjoy good food, and then afterwards at 3 o'clock we will meet back here for our last session with Michael Carducci. It's going to be a Q&A. That will be your opportunity to ask him any questions. So what time did I say we were going to do that? At 3 o'clock. What takes place before that? Potluck, fellowship meal, according to Jerry Evans, okay? All right, so that's the first announcement. Second announcement is next Sabbath, we would like to invite you to Corrales, but not in this building, okay? We will not have church services here in this building. Instead, we will go up the street and join the academy because next weekend is the Sandy View Academy Alumni Weekend. And so our church here will not be meeting. We will be going up there to show our support for the academy. A lot of you here who are part of our church is going to be involved over there. And so we're just going to come and support over there. So if you come here and you don't see any cars, don't be worried. No one was raptured, but everyone was over there, over at the academy. Friday, if I understand correctly, is our golf tournament, and so we invite all of you to come and support. Obviously, all the proceeds will support our school. If you have any questions, please talk to Paul Chavez. He'll be able to give you more information, and if we can get a team from our church, that would be great. So that's the second announcement. The third announcement is we're going to do a membership transfer. Those of you who are longtime Seventh-day Adventist church member, you know that this is the proper procedure. We put it in the bulletin and we announce it 1 week, and then the second week is when we make it official and we will vote in or out the following individuals that are on this list. Today we have one, and that's Patty Dirksen. She's going to be transferring out from Corrales Seventh-day Adventist Church to the Apison Seventh-day Adventist Church in Tennessee. So at this moment, is there a motion that we will vote Patty out and into the Tennessee Apison SDA Church? Okay, do I have a second? Okay, all those are in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, it's carried. It's now official, and I'll let our church clerk know to go ahead and proceed with that transfer. So that's our third announcement. The fourth announcement is going to be maybe on your way in, or if you haven't gotten one of these, we want to encourage you to grab an envelope for Coming Out Ministries. If you don't have one and you would like one, please see Willie. Raise your hand, or he's standing up. He's really tall. Or you can get one back there near the sound booth, or our greeters also should have some. So there's different ways to access this. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect offering at the end of the service. Okay, so when are we collecting offering? At the beginning of the service, right? Just kidding. At the end of the service. So at the end of the service, we're going to collect offering. I'll come back here, but I want to go ahead and give the instructions now so that you are aware, okay? In front of you, you have our regular tithe and offering envelopes. This week, our loose offering is going to go to local church budget. So if you don't put it in an envelope and you just give cash, That's going to go for Corrales Seventh-day Adventist Church. As you can see next door, we have a renovation that's happening. So any penny that comes in is going to be, helpful to us. However, if there's specific ministries that you want to support or a specific donation that you want to make, we invite you to mark it specifically in that envelope. And it's going to be the same thing here. The ones for Coming Out Ministries, very colorful, okay? All the information is right there. Please fill it out. And if you're going to write a check to Coming Out Ministries, we do ask that you specify so in your check. Our treasurer has asked us to do that. And then we're going to collect the offering. After Michael is done with his presentation, I'll come up before SVA does the closing song, and that's when we will collect our tithes and offering, okay? Any questions? Was that clear? What was my first announcement? It starts with a P, ends with a K, okay? Potluck or fellowship meal, all right? Second announcement, what's happening next Sabbath? Alumni weekend. Are we meeting in this building? No, okay? What was my third announcement? What did we do? We had a membership transfer. And then the last announcement that I just made, when are we collecting the offering and donations? At the end of the service, okay? All right, I hope that was clear. We welcome you once again to our church. At this time, we're gonna invite Sandia View Academy Choir. Thank you guys for sharing your talents with us. And then afterwards, we're going to introduce our speaker.
I don't know if you can hear me. I do have a mic, but it's not on yet. I'll give you a minute. As our students are coming up, I'm so proud of these kids. They look beautiful, don't they? I just love them. I don't know if you guys have received this or not. We're trying to raise money for performance dresses for the ladies. And we have $1,000 to raise, and we're at $290. So if any of you would like a brochure and want to know about it, just raise your hand, and my beautiful grandson here will bring you a brochure so that you can learn about it. I also want to introduce you to Azriel Cabello. He's going to be playing for us Shall We Gather at the River. He's been working on this. He's trying to improve his musician skills. He's doing a good job. So he's going to go and get ready to do that. And immediately after he plays his piece, we will be singing Go Down to the River to Pray. So it's kind of a theme. We got a theme thing going on here.
Was that beautiful? A lot of sacrifice goes into something like that from them and Sue and Don and the parents. Congratulations, that was awesome. That was amazing. Praise God. How many of you have been blessed this last couple of nights and this morning with these morning's sessions? You know, I have the pleasure of introducing this morning's speaker. Michael Carducci. He is the co-founder, senior speaker, and chairman of Coming Out Ministries. He's blessed countless people around the world. He's, through the Holy Spirit, he's brought so many souls to the feet of Jesus. He's been a blessing to so many people. And on top of all of his accolades and everything that he's achieved through the power of God, he's also one of the most down-to-earth, funnest, coolest guys that I know, that I've met. And I'm speaking from here, brother. I had the pleasure of showing Michael around Old Town, and we laughed, we sang, I come to find out that he doesn't know what Breaking Bad is, and I was pleasantly surprised for that. He doesn't know the bad side of Albuquerque. We ate some green chili candy, talked about ghosts at the covered wagon that supposedly exists. So we just had a really good time, and it's like, it didn't feel like, us just having some conversations and, messaging back and forth. It just really felt like I've known Michael like my whole life. And I overheard Liliana mentioning to my sister Debbie just minutes ago that he's like family, and I feel the same way. And so I'm privileged and just happy to present to you guys this morning's speaker, Michael Carducci. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Willie. That was kind. It was nice. It's always a great thing, especially for our ministry, Coming Out Ministries, because we don't always know how we're going to be received, and a lot of times people look at us like we have 4 eyes or 3 eyes or something like that. So when I have an opportunity and your arms are open and you see past the history and all of that kind of stuff, it's a real blessing for me too. So thank you. Thank you. Today, what I want to talk about is whose salvation is it anyway? And it wasn't until after the COVID thing broke out that I really started to realize that we are actually living in, really diverse times. And some of the promises that we have heard for many years and we've been looking forward to are actually here. It's interesting that in our world, we have a lot of social constructs now that are really interfering with I think, some of the ways that we do church. Everyone's got an opinion about some of the social constructs that are out there, whether it's abortion or BLM or LGBT or whatever it is, and it seems like it's really having a distraction in the church. And so this presentation is basically about recognizing that it's your salvation and that God cares for each one of us and cares for me. And he started to show me that when I get caught up in all of these social constructs that are out there in the world that are also bleeding into the church, not only is it designed to polarize the world, but also to polarize the church. And what I found through so many people around the world, no matter where I go, is that there's this unity that's also happening at the same time. And I want to make sure that I'm part of the unity and not part of the polarization. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think it's important to be very clear about whose salvation is it today. And so hopefully this is a reminder for each one about being determined about the direction that we're going and what it is that you want out of your spiritual experience today. Yeah. So I want to tell you a little bit of a funny story just to lighten up the mood a little bit, because it's like, oh, here we go, heavy mic and heavy sermon or whatever. But it was interesting. The very first time that I ever spoke, period, in an academy or to the youth was actually at an academy, and it was they had a choir trip that day, and they said, listen, don't worry, half the school's going to be gone on a choir trip. It won't be a real heavy, and so don't expect a whole lot. And I go, okay, no problem. So then they had a tornado drill the day before. Tornado came through, and they canceled the choir trip, so the choir was stuck there. And so that meant that they had to listen to what I was going to say. But the next day, that also meant that the special music was the choir. And so the choir got up, and they sang this amazing song. And I was sitting there, and I was so enraptured in what the choir was singing that I thought to myself, I go, wow, that's really amazing. I hope there's a really good sermon today. I know, I totally forgot, right? I totally forgot. And then when the song was done, it's like, oh, that's me. I'm up. All right, so, yeah. So anyway, I don't know how it turned out, but it was amazing. And whenever you see young people singing, you know, for an old person like me, you know, that's really heartwarming to see young people that sing with joy. You know, I was looking at everybody's faces, and y'all were smiling while you were singing, and that was really touching. So from an old person, I hope that you know that what you did is a real blessing for me. So I could just sit down and be done with it. But I'm not, so we're going to go ahead and start. So I don't have a clicker, but I have an automatic clicker, so all I have to do is go click like that and watch what happens. Isn't that cool? Wait, click. Yeah, see? All right, so let's go back. Let's start back, because I want to go to Luke chapter 21 and verse 11. But before I do, let's have a word of prayer as I begin. Father, I just ask for your Holy Spirit to be with me, Lord, and to cover me and to speak through me. And Lord, if you would make me a vessel for you today, Lord, that's all I desire. And I pray, Father, that you will take the roof off of this church, and that, Lord, that you will pour out your Spirit to each person here, that not one of us would walk away, Lord, untouched and unquenched, Lord, for the thirst that we have for you today. May you be blessed, Lord, by our worship is my desire. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So starting with Luke chapter 21 and verse 11, it says, "And great earthquakes shall there be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven." So being a hairdresser, I remember I had a client, and he's a Catholic. And being raised a Catholic, I know that we never really messed with the Bible a whole lot, that we were told that the pastor or the preacher or the priest, the priest had to decipher that for us. But I was really impressed that my client, who was also a chiropractor, knew his Bible. And I said, you know, we're living really in diverse times. And he said, you know what, Mike, tell me something that hasn't happened. He said, yeah, we've had earthquakes, and we've had famines and pestilences. He said, that has been going on for hundreds of years. He said, tell me one thing that's new that we haven't ever experienced before, and then I'll believe you. And I thought quickly, and I prayed, and I asked the Holy Spirit for guidance, and then something popped into my head, and I said, well, how about LGBTQ acceptance, not just in our country, but also around the world? And he stopped, and he said, you're the first person to answer that in a way where I've never heard it before, and you're absolutely right. So he was really impressed by that. So as the COVID thing was coming in, and back in 2020, I had just come from spending a month in Thailand. And as I came back, of course, I saw the COVID crisis happening in Asia. And then when I came home in March, I was shocked that our whole world was entirely shut down. Was anyone else surprised by that? And so what was really amazing is that because I've studied Bible prophecy for the last 22 years, I wasn't fearful, but I was concerned. And so not only was I concerned about whether I was going to have toilet paper for the oncoming months, like many of you were, I was also realizing that these were the times that God was saying were going to happen just before his coming. And you know what? I started to have this kind of reverence. I started to feel that, wow, I really could possibly live to see Jesus come in the clouds. And so, of course, many of us have heard that. But as I started to study with a little bit more heart and a little bit more conviction about these issues that are going to happen at the end of time. So reading The Great Controversy again, which is a really great book to read if you're really concerned about what's going to happen at the end of time. And so many times I'll go to that, or I'll even listen to it on book, and I'll just pick a chapter that I think really applies to where we're living today. But I found this quote, and I want to share it with you. And so while I'm not afraid, I'm definitely concerned to make sure that I'm ready, that this is my salvation. And so I want to share with you from this quote some of the challenges that I think that we're going to be facing, but also that there's promises laid into this quote. And as I unpacked this, I started to realize that there really is only one safe place, and that's not in the basement with the roll of toilet paper. It's actually in the arms of Jesus. So I want to share this with you from Great Controversy, page 563. It says, Satan also works. Did we click? Oh, click one time. Satan also works through the forces of nature to gather his harvest of unprepared people. And what does he do? He works through the forces of nature to gather who? Unprepared people. So what do we want to be? Prepared people, right? So he has studied the secrets of nature's laboratory. And I get this kind of sick image in my mind of, Lucifer being in a laboratory, mixing these things and, just polluting that in the air. It says that Satan uses all of his powers to rule over the elements, but only as far as God will allow. Thank you, thank you. One person is connected. He uses all of his powers to rule over the elements, but only as far as God will allow. That's a promise. That means that Satan can only go so far, but here comes some more promises. One accident followed in the other in quick succession, which means that we can expect that there will be more. Remember the second wave of COVID, and so it wouldn't be unrealistic to think that there might be another wave of COVID coming. We have no idea what's coming, but we have the promise of God that Satan can only work as far as God will allow. Is that good? Is that a good thing? All right. So it is God who cares for his created beings and protects them from the power of the destroyer. Okay, well, I thought the momentum was going to carry, but that's okay. I have no expectation, all right? So it is God who cares for us and protects us from the power of the destroyer. That should be a good thing. So where do I want to be? I want to be in the arms of Jesus, right? Over his beloved. So I want to make sure that I'm not only prepared, but that I'm also under the protection of God. It says that it is, but the Christian world has shown contempt for God's law. Isn't that interesting? Because it's not the heathens that God is concerned about. He's saying that it is the Christian world that has shown contempt for God's law. So if the Christian world is showing contempt for God's law, it's the Christian world that is showing this contempt that is allowing the enemy to move forward with the things that we're seeing in the world today. So while there are precious promises for those who keep God's law and those who are under the protection of God, unfortunately for those who are not or who are showing contempt for God's law, that is what's causing this to happen in our world. It goes on, it says, the Lord will do exactly what he has declared he would do. Does that mean he's dependable? Yes. Absolutely. It's a little frightening, but he's dependable. He will withdraw his blessings from the earth and remove his protective care from those who rebel against his law and who teach and compel others to do also. Satan has power over everyone whom God does not protect in a special way. While appearing before men as a great physician who can cure all their diseases, he will bring about sickness and disasters so that rich cities are ruined and depopulated. I know, right? Wow. But what I see in there is I see these precious promises, again, to recommit, to make sure that I'm keeping God's law, that I keep him in my heart, right? And so it's not just enough that I keep him in my heart. I also have an obligation to preach unto all nations, right? People, kindred, and tongue, that Jesus is coming soon. So I don't have the liberty to just hang out in my basement with my toilet paper and wait for Jesus to come. I have to be active in his service also, right? Okay. But we also know that these promises for God's people, it's also the Christian world that shows contempt that brings about the time of the end. So the heathen world was not even included in this quote. Give me another click if you would. So I want to share with you some of the things that I saw as the COVID crisis was going on. Does anyone remember the fire in Paradise, California? Yes. Ironically, I had just spoken in their brand new remodeled church just a year before the fire completely destroyed and leveled this church. I have a friend, and him and his family were there. His wife taught at the school. She called her husband, and she said, we're coming home. We're going to pack a bag. We're just going to see our in-laws. This fire is actually coming, and so they're recommending that we leave. So they closed the school down. The kids came home. They threw a couple of days of clothes in a bag, and off they went. 8 hours later, their house was completely consumed in the fire. And not so many, or some people actually didn't get out. There was a woman who was in her car in Paradise, the fire that you see on the left, and she said that she was in traffic, stuck in traffic, and the fire was actually on both sides of the road, and even the road itself was on fire. Can you imagine a tar road on fire? That doesn't go out quickly. And so all of a sudden she's talking to her husband, and she says, I'm stuck in traffic, we're not moving, I'm afraid. And she said, smoke is starting to fill the car, and her husband said, get out of the car now and run to the next car. And so she obeyed him instinctively. She just got out of the car and she started running through the smoke. She found another car. She just jumped in the back seat. She didn't even know these people. And as she was sitting there, already her pants were on fire from running on the road, and she burnt the seat that she sat in this lady's back seat. But the woman at the driver's seat, she was telling her how scared they were, and that the traffic wasn't going anywhere. And then all of a sudden the smoke started to fill this car. And the woman in the back seat, she said, my husband said, when the car starts smoking, get out. And she says, we have to get out, we have to leave. And the woman behind the wheel said, I can't. And the woman said, I have to go. And she got out and she ran through the smoke, street on fire on both sides of the road. And she actually ran into a fire truck because that's how thick the smoke was. The men in the fire truck pulled this woman in. They had a fire wall against the fire truck, but they were already radioing in that there was no way that they could get out. There was no exit for them because of the traffic was so bad. A few minutes later, a bulldozer came through and was actually pushing the cars off the road so that this fire truck could actually go to safety. That woman went to the hospital. Once they treated her for the burns on her backside, she was working as a nurse in the hospital to relieve the suffering of the other people in that city. 8 hours. And that town was completely leveled. Over 100,000 homes were destroyed. We are living in the times of the end. And then the center picture is in Tennessee, where I live. I was driving through, and I went through Nashville, and I saw all of the roofs with the blue tarps on them from a storm that had come through that had leveled a lot of homes. Just 2 weeks after that, Chattanooga, where I was also visiting on my way to Florida, was leveled by a storm. I have a friend. She was sleeping in her bed. Her husband was a paramedic. He was gone. She was sleeping in her bed on the top floor, and all of a sudden she heard this railroad train coming. She ran down to the basement of her house where a tree fell on her home and totally destroyed the bedroom that she was sleeping in just a few minutes before. Just one of the stories of what happened to people in Chattanooga. There's no question that we are living in diverse times in our Bible history. Give me a click if you would. And so, you know something? I was baptized just a few months before the 9/11 crisis. Raise your hand if you were alive in 9/11. There's a lot of people who weren't. And you know what? That was a really weird day. I was actually working in the salon that I had opened with my ex-lover. Here we were working. I was a new Christian, and I was cutting hair on the day that the plane hit the tower. A friend of mine who worked for MSNBC in New York City had partied all night. She went into work in her party clothes and realized that one of the towers had been hit. She was working the intake desk, so she sent out a helicopter to be able to film this. And then that, of course, is when they found that the other plane had hit the other World Trade Tower. And all of this was going on while I'm working, and that was when I realized I need to get out of the city. I need to get out of the city. But this is really interesting, but as a new Christian and reading not only Great Controversy, but some of the other things that Ellen White had to find what was going on in our world, isn't it interesting that in the ninth volume of the Testimonies on page 11, 9/11, do you think that's a coincidence? I think not. But this is what she says. She says, the last crisis, we are living in the time of the end. And that happened 20 years ago, right? It said the fast fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. The days in which we live are solemn and important. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from the earth. Plagues and judgments are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They forecast approaching events of the greatest magnitude. The agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating. They are strengthening for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place upon our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. Woo! That's a loaded quote, isn't it? Now, for somebody like me, it took me a few years to get out of Orlando, Florida. But by 2004, I was living in Tennessee. I was preparing for the time of the end. I was buying bags of beans. I was filling gas tanks full of gasoline. I was canning peaches and apples and all kinds of stuff to put on my shelves because I wanted to live during the time of trouble. I had several beds in my house. I had a king-size bed, a queen-size bed, a full-size bed. I had 2 twin beds, and I had a sofa bed. I had wool blankets for all of those. I had a wood-burning stove, and I lived on in a house, a cabin that was on a creek. So I was ready for the time of trouble. Right? And yet, what was the real preparation that I needed to have during that time? And while I thought Jesus was coming soon, look, here we are, and it's 2023 almost, and yet Jesus hasn't come yet. And so some of us can get kind of lax, but if you weren't alive when 9/11 happened, that was an earth-changing time, wasn't it, brothers and sisters, for those of us who were alive? Give me another click if you would. In Luke chapter 17, verses 26 and 27, it says, "And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all." Interesting. So, we've heard that passage. And it's interesting to me because when I give this presentation to little kids, through the kindergarten through the fourth graders, I talk about the fact that, Noah preached probably the lousiest sermon ever preached because he preached the same sermon for 120 years. And how many people got on the boat? 8, right? That must not have been a very good sermon. But imagine when I talk to the young people and I say, wait a minute, it wasn't Noah that gathered the animals 2 by 2 onto the ark. And what kind of animals did he gather? Was it 2 boys of every kind? No. Was it 2 girls of every kind? No. It was a male and female of every kind. And I asked the young boys and the girls in this group, and I say, why was it that God needed a boy and a girl to get on the ark of every animal? And the kids know this, and with a resounding response, they all say, so they can have babies. How wonderful that God is affirming again that his design was 1 male and 1 female that produces life. Is that right? And so we're living in a time where we have social constructs, we have gender identity dysphoria, and that you can identify not only as the opposite sex or whatever sex that you want to make up for yourself. We have the term non-binary, where I'm not defined by my biology, that I can be whatever identity I want to make up in my mind. These are the social constructs that are going on in our world today, and they're actually bleeding into our very churches. Did you know that? And so how is it that we can be going through the motions of this life and not see the times in which we're living in? Give me another click if you would. And so in 28 and 29 it says, likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot. They ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, just the same things as they did in the days of Noah. They planted, they built, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained down fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed how many? All of them. All of them. How sad. How sad that so many people not only living in our world, but also going to church each and every week. How is it that we could be so blind? Is that one of the symptoms of the church of Laodicea? Is that we don't even recognize the times in which we're living in? And so while we get so busy thinking about the things that are going on outside in this world, what is really my relationship like with God? What is my relationship like with the people that I go to church with? Do I find myself at odds with everybody? Do I find myself insisting that they listen to my opinions and that I must be right because of my understanding, my enlightenment? Or do I find myself being more humbled by the fact that we're living in such portentous times that I don't have the time to get involved in these social constructs? I really need to keep my eye on the prize and the focus of what I want my future to be. Raise your hands if you were baptized. By getting baptized, you made a decision that you wanted to follow Jesus. You made a decision that you want to be in heaven. Isn't that why you're here? Isn't that why you go through the motions of your Christian experience? So that we could be in heaven with Jesus? And yet, how is it that the devil is so artful to get us so dissuaded on these topics that we end up losing our focus and finding ourselves involved in other things? And so, as a Christian, as a new Christian back in 2000, when I got baptized, one of the things that happened before I got baptized, still living with a boyfriend, still in a sexual addiction, one of the things that happened is this woman stood up and she said that you can actually naturally lower your cholesterol by going to a plant-based diet. I thought to myself, well, I'm 40 years old. I'm already on that pill to lower your cholesterol. I was running marathons. I was teaching spin classes. I was teaching aerobics for 20 years. And yet my cholesterol was 385. I don't know if you're a medical person, but that's pretty high. Right, Molly? Yeah. So anyway, I knew that my future was going to be probably most like my dad, who died of heart failure on the side of the road after he ate a very full meal. And so when this woman told me that, I took that as a life-freeing sentence, that I could actually go off of meat and lower my cholesterol naturally. So I went off the pill. I went out that night. I had a bacon double cheeseburger and a big milkshake, and that was my last supper. I went on a 10-day vacation with my boyfriend, and during that time I was going through incredible withdrawals. No coffee, no cheese, no chicken, no meat, no pork, no shellfish, whatever that was. You know, I had this terrible headache for like 3 weeks. But you know what? Something miraculously happened. In Daniel chapter 1, remember Daniel asked, please, you know, don't let us eat the king's meat. Don't force us to eat that. We don't even want his wine. Let us just have plant-based diet and water. And the eunuch, remember, he was afraid that they were going to be scrawny and skinny, and he said, I don't know, but I'll do it for 10 days. And after 10 days, just 10 days, the king found Daniel and his friends healthier, wiser, stronger than anyone else, right? And so, how long was my vacation? 3. No, it was 10. It was 10 days. And during that 10 days, I was having a really difficult time. My job was to bring the booze, and I did. But I wasn't drinking that. But what was happening is God was cleansing out my system, because when I came back, it was the last day of the evangelistic series. My sister invited me to go, and the Lord was already cleaning out my system, because when that preacher made that altar call, I was ready to accept Jesus as my Savior. Now, I believe that because of that plant-based diet, it's not my salvation, but it's a tool I can use to help me to have a better connection to the God I love and the God that I serve. And for somebody with my history of transgenderism, homosexuality, porn, and sex addiction, trust me, I need every tool I can get. And so again, recognizing that here these people in Luke chapter 17, 28 and 29, he's not just talking about the heathen, he's also talking about the church. And you know, we have great counsel, and it breaks my heart when I go to different meals or banquets with people in leadership and find that we're still eating meat even after the prophet said that those that are expecting to be translated will let go of animal flesh. Did you know that? And so, brothers and sisters, whose salvation is it anyway? Right? And we're living in the time where don't you need better influence from the Holy Spirit? Don't you need better communication from God? And so again, let me be very clear. It's not your salvation, but now's the time to start holding on to those tools when everything else is really falling apart, isn't it? And now what's really surprising is that I've had young people from my church that I saw grow up from little kids and now realize that even as Adventists, even as traditional Adventists, that they're now drinking alcohol and thinking that it's perfectly okay. And I look on their Facebook posts and I see them out at bars and drinking alcohol, and not just them, but even some of our own leadership in our church. And you know something? It was really difficult to give up the wine and the alcohol. I was definitely an alcoholic when I left the gay culture. But coming into a relationship with Jesus Christ, he wiped that away. He took that away. And you know what? I know that it tastes good. I know the wonderful things that alcohol can do. But if Jesus didn't give me something better than what I was already experiencing, I would be back in that. And for somebody, again, who wants to keep my eyes set on the prize, I want to be very clear not to allow these things to come back into my life. But the devil is going to make sure that those of us that are walking this path are going to start to miss the things of the world. We're going to see the enticements that are out there. They fascinate the eyes and the senses. But whose salvation is it anyway? Click. Philippians 2, verse 12. I was looking for this verse, and I'm not really crazy about this verse because it kind of like focuses on works. But you remember that verse that talks about work out your own salvation with fear and trembling? Well, I found it. It's Philippians 2, verse 12. But I didn't really read into the context until I put it into this presentation. But look at this. It says this. It says, wherefore, my beloved. Who's God's beloved? I am. You are. Wait a minute. He's not talking to us as a parent, scornfully, rebuking his kid. He's saying, you're my beloved. You're the one I love. And because we're beloved, that means we're in a relationship. We're in a connection. He's saying this. He said, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but also in my absence. So what that means, do the principles of your faith apply to you when you're in private? Or do they just apply for you when you're at the potluck? Do the principles apply when we're in church culture? Or are you able to lock your trash in your trunk and come into church and put on church? We look good. We smell good. We shine our shoes. But what are the things that we really do in private? Does it really amplify the things that we've committed to serving God? Because remember, we're his beloved. And it's not just enough to do the things that we profess to do in public, but do those principles apply even in private? Click. Because this is not your parents' religion. And unfortunately, what I see so much, especially with the young people, is not seeing the love of Jesus demonstrated in their parents' life. As a matter of fact, that even applied to me back in year of our Lord, 1974. And I remember that my dad was a head elder of the church, but my dad was smoking cigarettes on the side. I found my father's pornography when I would clean his offices. And so, you know what? His religion wasn't working for him either. And so it would be very easy that because of my father's example that I would become slack. I thought that God must be like my dad, arbitrary, indifferent, judgmental. And so you know what? It was very easy to walk away from church because it wasn't working for him and it wasn't working for me. And so whose salvation is it anyway? And while we become comfortable with the traditions of Adventism, we come to church every Sabbath, we sing the songs or whatever, but is the traditions of Adventism enough for you? Are you satisfied? Aren't you tired of going through the motion of the traditions without any real power? Click. Oh, wait a minute. We went too far. No, stay there if you would. So Romans chapter 14 and verse 5, it says, let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. And what does that mean? That means that God doesn't want you to be there because you don't understand what's coming. He doesn't want you to blindly just trust him and follow him. He says, be very sure about exactly what it is that you want. Make sure that you know who your Savior is. Make sure that this is something that you are determined to want. Because you know what? Remember that whole thing in the Bible where it talks about how if you're hot or cold, that God would prefer that. But because you're lukewarm, he just wants to spit us out of his mouth. Why? Because we misrepresent when we're lukewarm. And while we're going through the traditions of our Christianity, the principles aren't really being portrayed. And therefore, our children don't see it. The community doesn't see it. And your brothers and sisters sitting beside you don't see it either. And so whose salvation is it anyway? One click, please. I want to tell you a story about a young man named Jacques. Jacques came up to me at GYC one year, and he was a young man. He was raised in a Christian home. His father was a pastor. His mother was a nurse. They kept the computer in the family room so that they could monitor what their children were watching. But Jacques went to school at an Adventist school, and at 7 years old, second grade, he went to school, and his best friend printed off some pornography from the computer. And he showed it to Jacques, and that was the moment when Jacques became hooked. And he would set his alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning so he could look at the family computer while they were sleeping at 7 years old. And so eventually he went to our Adventist university. He went through Adventist schooling, and he said that there would be the girl playing the guitar at Vespers on Friday night, and she'd be sending pictures of herself topless to his roommate. He said he never had to pay for sex while he was in Adventist university because there were plenty of girls willing to have sex with him. And this is what's going on in our school systems today. Fortunately, Jacques got arrested for pot, having possession of pot. He was also dealing while he was in our Adventist institution, and he was given the choice to either go to jail because it was his first offense, or he could go into the army, and he chose the army. Still struggling with addictions and prostitution. Eventually, the Lord reached him when he was in a drunken stupor. He gave his heart to the Lord delivered him, and now he is living as a pastor after he graduated from Oakwood University. But I want to be very clear about the things that our young people are really struggling with. And if we're not able to have those conversations to help them, to support them, to educate them, and to prepare them, by our silence, we're basically just surrendering and sacrificing our children to the enemy. Give me another click if you would. I was in Cuba. I went to Cuba, and we were involved in a mission trip, and Coming Out Ministries was invited to be there. I was there with a colleague, and during our devotions, we would talk with not only the translators, but also with the powerful speakers that were there. Kezia lived in Brooklyn, New York. She was also a student studying to be an architect, and because of her love for architecture, she was preaching powerful sermons about the sanctuary each and every night to these different churches in Cuba. It was challenging, but in the morning we would have these amazing devotions where there would be about 20 to 25 of us there, not only with the translators, but also the speakers. And as I was talking, we were reading from this book, and as we were talking about how God delivers us, how God cares about us, and I would talk personally about my struggle with pornography and those kind of things. And what was amazing is this girl was sitting there, Kezia, with these big dark glasses on. And one day, towards the end of our time there together, these tears started coming down through those glasses. And she confessed to the whole group that she was struggling, not only with pornography addiction, but also sexual addiction. And here she was, a powerful speaker at night. And I asked her, and I looked at her, and I said, well, you know what the Bible says about sexual sin, don't you? And she said, not really, because nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it in the church. We don't get it at home, and so all we have is YouTube to listen to, and so we think it's okay. Have mercy. That this poor woman didn't understand the clarity of God's word about sexual sin because we're not talking about it. And because we're not talking about it, the enemy has laid waste, and he's been moving into our ranks in a rapid way. This afternoon, I want to talk about LGBT and the church, and I want to enlighten you about what's going on not only in our world, but also in our church. But I also want to talk about the beautiful part, about how God reaches people like me in our church and how his power is still alive today. And so Kezia eventually started talking with Coming Out Ministries. She's now a colleague. She works with me. It's fantastic to hear not only her story of redemption, but also to hear about her faith and the fact that she understood that it was her salvation that was in jeopardy. And it was a very difficult journey for her, but to see a young person who has given their heart completely to the Lord, that has also been delivered of that sexual bondage, I find quite amazing to hear in our story, in our world today. Give me a click if you would. And Testimonies on Sexual Behavior, Adultery, and Divorce, page 81. It says this. It says, the power and influence of God's law are all around us, but not within the soul, renewing it in true holiness. Therefore, the Lord sends his appeals to them to urge upon them to practice what is right. The appeals of his Spirit are neglected and rejected. The barriers are broken down. The soul is weak, and for want of moral force to overcome is polluted and debased. They are binding themselves up in bundles of wood, ready to be consumed on the last day. Whoa. And here the prophet of the Lord, over 100 years ago, tells us exactly how the enemy is going to take us out. Tells us exactly what's going to happen at the end of time. And why is it that we have so few sermons? Why is it that we have so few committees and groups in our churches to help people to overcome the onslaught of what they're thrown at through the internet? If your children have unlimited access to the internet, that's like giving a razor blade to an infant. That's the power of what this does to our society and also to our church. Click. Do we have an Achan in the camp? Joshua chapter 7 and verses 10 to 11. It says, and the Lord said unto Joshua, he said, get up. Why are you lying on your face? Why are you ignoring what's going on in our world? It said, Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant, which I commanded them. For they have even taken of the accursed thing, and have also stolen and dissembled also, and they have put it even among their own stuff. I don't know about you, but I see the application of this principle, not just physically to Israel, but also spiritually to us, because aren't we the church? Aren't we the sanctuary for the Holy Spirit? Click. Testimonies on Sexual Behavior, one more quote from page 84. It talks about Satan's repetitious plot. What that means is that what Satan did before, he's going to do again. And the prophet of the Lord again told us over 100 years ago, this is what's going to happen. And so we know exactly how to prepare. We know exactly the things that we should be focusing on because she made it very plain. And this is what she said. She said, near the close of this earth's history, do you believe that you're living in the close of this earth's history? She says, Satan will work with how much? All his powers in the same manner and with the same temptation wherewith he tempted ancient Israel just before they're entering the land of promise. He will lay snares for those who claim to keep the commandments of God and who are almost on the borders of the heavenly Canaan. He will use his powers to their utmost in order to entrap souls and to take God's professed people upon their weakest points. Those who have not brought their lower passions into subjection to the higher powers of their being, those who have allowed their minds to flow in a channel of carnal indulgence or the baser passions, Satan is determined to destroy with his temptations, to pollute your soul with licentiousness. So here we know. We know exactly how it's going to end. We know exactly how the devil is going to take us out. So now we need to put our focus back on the fact that this is my salvation. And the things that are taking me out, the things that are occupying my mind, those are the things that are going to actually shape my character, because it's not this old body I'm going to take to heaven. Thank you. It's going to be my mind. It's going to be the character that I take to heaven. And the things that I expose it to, the things that I indulge in, those are the things that are either going to prepare me for heaven or actually going to leave me on this desolate earth and to be destroyed when the earth is destroyed. Aren't we living in portentous times, brothers and sisters? Aren't we told to wake up, not to sleep? So it wouldn't be fair if I just told you what the promise was, or what the problem was, without not giving you a solution. Give me a clip. CovenantEyes.com is an amazing accountability resource. It will not keep you from pornography, but it will help you from channeling or tunneling out of control. Covenant Eyes is something that I recommend to anyone who's serious about wanting to overcome their addictions to pornography. We're too powerless against this device. Please monitor your children. Please access the things that they're looking at. Please, more importantly, have conversations with your children. Talk to them openly. Be loving and kind and be supportive. And if they struggle, don't criticize them, don't condemn them, but love them and support them and show them how you got victory over your sins. Because we are all in this together, aren't we? Would it shame you, parents, if you found that while you're having your family devotions with your children, that because you pay the cable bill and you've allowed your children to have access, that they're completely involved in a whole different world? A pastor told me one time, I don't know why my daughter's got a gay pride flag up in her room. I don't know why she shaved a line through her eyebrow and cut all of her hair off. He said, because we have family worship, she's there, she sings the songs, we read the scriptures together. And then I asked him, I said, does your child have unlimited access to the internet? And he said, well, yes, I trust that my daughter can make good judgment about what's on the internet. And I said, really? I said, even adults, fully mature human beings, don't even have the power over the things that are on the internet. And I said, so while you're paying the bill, you're the one that's actually allowing your daughter to go into a whole different world when she's done with her family devotions. Another website that we have, if you go to, I'm sorry, before you click, promo code ComSafe. If you register on your computer, it doesn't work on your phone or your iPad, but if you go on your computer and you register for Covenant Eyes, if you go to ComSafe, if you use that as a promo code, you can actually get a discount and a free month. Give me another click if you would. We have also accountable2you.com. It's also another accountability software that's designed to not only monitor the things that you look at on your internet, but also it sends a report to your accountability partner. And you know what? I wish that our churches were filled with accountability partners. Does this church have a men's group? Did you say yes? Do you know how rare that is to hear? Do you know how rare that is to hear? Praise God. Praise God for that. But instead of just sweeping the little old lady's roof off, right, or helping somebody move into their house, the men should be talking about men's issues. It's not enough just to do good things for the little old ladies in the church. But it's important to also address the men, because I guarantee you, if you can help heal the men, then you also automatically help to heal the wives that aren't getting 100% of their husbands. And when you start to heal the parents, the husbands, and the wives, then you automatically filter down to the children who are lost in the lies and deceptions. Click if you would. So my sister, living in the Keys, she goes to church with a woman that's in her 90s. She's almost 100 years old. And she's a 3-generation Adventist, and she would always say, Jesus is coming soon. Isn't that what we say? Right? Isn't that what we say? Jesus is coming soon. Do you believe that? Yes. Okay. All right. Good. So this little old lady, she's been saying, Jesus is coming soon. Jesus is coming soon. But when the COVID shut down her entire world, and then when she saw the promotion of the LGBT acceptance in 2015 between 9/11 and the COVID crisis, President Obama legalized gay marriage. And now it's going like wildfire around the world. We're going to talk about that a little bit more this afternoon. But this little old lady was so shocked by the things that are going on in her world that she said, you know what? I'm not saying Jesus is coming anymore. She says, I've been hearing that all my life through 3 generations. She goes, I believe that by what's coming now, click, that Jesus is just plain coming. I'm not even going to say that he's coming soon anymore. Give me another click. I was actually in Austria for 6 months, or in Europe for 6 months during the COVID crisis. I don't know why, but there was a small window, and I was able to go and to do a conference in Germany. And during this time, they again shut down most of these countries, but I went to 9 countries, and I spoke in 19 places in 6 months that I was in Europe before I actually returned to the United States. But I was in Switzerland, and I was talking to a friend. We're taking a tour at night. We were walking around these castles that were in his city, which kind of blows my mind. But as we were talking, I said to my friend about this story, about this little old lady and how Jesus is coming soon. And I said, you know what? I started to realize that pretty soon we're going to see Jesus. And I said, and that really started to thrill my heart, even though I was a little bit anxious about my own situation. And my friend looked at me and he said, Mike, he said, what that means is if Jesus is coming soon, he said, pretty soon there won't be any more sin. And then my mouth fell open. And I realized that if there won't be any more sin pretty soon, I don't think I hate my sin enough. Do you? I started to pray this prayer. I say, Lord, help me to hate sin perfectly, because I don't hate my sin good enough. Because if I hated my sin perfectly, then maybe I would recoil from the temptations that call my name. Maybe I wouldn't go so far to try to hang on to the things that I love of this world. Maybe if I hated sin perfectly, I would hold on to my Savior more. Click. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verses 2 to 11, it says, "For yourselves you know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night." How many times have you heard that? 1,000,000? Then verse 3 says, "For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." So when a woman is travailing with child, that means that she's going into labor. You know, the labor pains start off kind of soft, like, and then they come like every couple of hours. Then all of a sudden, every hour they start going, and then every 15 minutes is like, right? And so is it going to be at the end of time. 9/11 happened in 2001, right? And then all of a sudden we had gay rights moving, not only in our country but around the world. And now we have the COVID crisis. And we know that according to prophecy, I don't have to look ahead to see what's coming, but I know that something is coming, and I can put a waymark at every time that something happens that fulfills Bible prophecy. I don't have to be a prophet. I don't have to say the financial institution is going to shut down in 6 months, because you know what? If I'm a prognosticator and it doesn't happen, I have absolutely lost my influence not only with you, but also in the world. But what I can do is I can talk about the waymarks that have already happened. The COVID crisis, 9/11, right? And I can point people to the Bible. I was giving my testimony in a home in England, in London, England, just in February. And while I was there, I was telling my story to people that were atheists, people that were totally bought into contemporary identities, and I was very nervous while I was there. There was about 15 people there. And after I was done, I thought that I should probably excuse myself very quickly, but instead, even the atheists came up to me, and they'd never heard a story about giving your identity to Jesus Christ. And that they were so what's the word for that? Impressed that they wanted to begin Bible studies. They wanted to study the Bible prophecies. I'm like, really? So I came back to the United States, and now these people are getting together once a month to have Bible studies, and they want to know about Daniel and Revelation. Is that bizarre? All because they heard a story that they'd never heard about somebody that was LGBT, that didn't buy into the fact that they were maybe born that way, but that they wanted out and that they were following Jesus Christ. And now they want to know what's happening in our world today, because they're seeing the waymarks too, right? They see what's going on in our world today. Click. It goes on and says, "But you, brothers, you are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. You are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night nor the darkness." What that means is, for those people that show contempt for God's law, guess what? They're in the night. They're drunken in the night. But those of us who believe in Jesus Christ, those of us who promise or attempt to keep His law, have our focus on Jesus, guess what? We're not in darkness. You see what's coming. You know exactly what's coming. And so again, whose salvation is it anyways? And if it is your salvation, then if we are children of the light, not only does that give us the ability to see what's coming, but it also allows us the opportunity to have confidence in what's coming and not to be fearful running to the store for toilet paper. Can I get a witness? And so the beauty of this is that I don't have to fear what's coming. That the beautiful thing is not only will I see Jesus, we're going to have to go through a time of trouble. We know that it's coming, but we also know that we have the protection of God. And that the only safe place to be is to make sure that your salvation is your salvation. And that you're not just following the traditions of your Christianity, but rather that you've established a relationship with your Savior. Because honestly, brothers and sisters, if Jesus wasn't everything to me, it would not be worth it to be in church culture. It's way too hard to white-knuckle my experience by myself. If I didn't know that Jesus was there to hold my hand, to lift me up, to pick me up, to walk with me, and to empower me and to strengthen me, none of this would be worth it. Verse 6, "Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us be watch and be sober." Click. For those that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet, the hope of salvation. So again, it's not enough to sit out in your basement and wait for Jesus to come. Because to demonstrate the power of Jesus Christ, we have to go into the communities. We have to talk to people. It's not enough that we hover together and make church a country club. Remember, we're a hospital. We're supposed to be open for those that are hurting, for those that have been downtrodden, for those that have been abused. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the very people in the church that have abused them. Am I the only one that's experienced that? Click. For God has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by who? Our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, that we should live together with him. Wherefore, comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also you do. And so here's the challenge, that instead of these social constructs that are ripping our church apart and our communities, remember that we're supposed to lift up Jesus Christ. And we're supposed to edify the church, not tear them down, not criticize them, not talk about them, not bully them, not insist that you believe how I believe. But what if we got together and we did more praying, asking for the Spirit of God to come into our hearts personally so that we might make a difference in our church. And then when the church finally gets it, then you have something to give to the community. Because if you can't even get along in church, what makes you think you're going to offer anything to somebody outside? Do you say the prayer, Our Father? Do you? Right? Let's say the first two lines. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's it. Just by saying that simple prayer, guess what? We're now in a brotherhood. Because when I pray to my Father and you pray to your Father, it's the same Father. So guess what? That makes you my brother. And that makes you my sister, right? And so we come from completely different backgrounds. We don't come from the same cultures. You don't come from the same circumstances that I did. And yet I didn't come from the circumstances you did. But now that we pray the same prayer, we're in a familyhood. We are all family here. And we are probably the most dysfunctional family you can possibly imagine. But that's okay with God. Because he knows that he has the power to change us and to unite us. But even in a dysfunctional family, Willie, if you got cancer, we're all going to help you. We're going to take you to your doctor's appointment. We're going to sit there. We're going to help make food so your wife can be with you during this really difficult time. And you know what? We're not going to abandon you when you lose all your hair or when you can't eat or maybe when you've lost your leg because of the cancer. We're going to be there and we're going to help fit you for your prosthetic. We're going to be there until the cancer is over and then we're going to celebrate with you. Isn't that right? And do you have the patience to do that for somebody like me? Because his problem may be physical, but mine is emotional or maybe sexual. Do you have the ability to be patient to the person sitting next to you that's addicted to maybe alcohol or maybe sex or pornography or whatever that is? Because remember, we're in the same family. And what that means is that if you're hurting, I'm hurting with you. And I'm going to sit with you until this passes. And there were people that were in my church that were willing and able to do that for me. But you know what? If you're celebrating, sister, then we're going to celebrate together. Isn't that right? Isn't that what a family does? And so because we're family, guess what? That has to change the dynamics of what we do in here. Because if you're not able to do it in here, then again, you have nothing to offer the community. And Jesus is going to make this church a beacon of light to the community because you have a men's ministry and a women's ministry. But most importantly, you realize that the person that's sitting beside you that doesn't come from your past, that didn't know what you went through, but didn't go through what you've been through, but she went through something of her own, is that we can relate now because I have an obligation to her. And she has an obligation to me. And when we start to realize that, and we start to find that what's our commonality is not necessarily the color of our skin or the culture that we grew up in, but rather the new culture of the God that we serve. I am not a member of this country anymore. I'm a member of the country and the kingdom of Jesus Christ. Isn't that right? Wouldn't it be novel if we had the grace to show the person sitting next to you? To find out, how are you doing? Not just going through the motions of just sitting next to you, but how are you doing? What's really going on in your life? Hey, come on over to my house for dinner. You know, churches are cliques. They tend to stay to their own. And so start inviting other people to come around. And you know, I'm going to tell you a story this afternoon. Please, raise your hand if you're coming back. Are you just going to eat the food and leave? Let me see. If you're going to come back this afternoon, I want to tell you an amazing story. If you're not going to come back, raise your hand if you're not going to come back. Can you be that bold? All right. Thank you for being honest. Can I tell you the story anyway? Can you guys go another 5 minutes? Okay. Did you hear that? I get another hour. Woo! This is the story I want to tell you. This is the story I want to tell you. There were 3 of us, 3 homosexuals in our church. And so a friend of mine, this big black guy with big muscles, and then the other guy was this Puerto Rican kid named Ruben. He was a skinny, tall kid. He was about 28 years old. And then me, 40-year-old hairdresser, right? I had a convertible Mercedes. I had a condo on a lake with a boat. I had a house with a pool. I had all of these things going on or whatever. But I was coming in, and the 3 of us were now trying to follow Jesus Christ. We weren't sure about our future, but there was this Colombian family, this immigrant Colombian family. And they didn't have a lot of money. They lived in a really bad section of town with a lot of drug dealers, kids running around in dirty diapers. But this humble little family, they homeschooled their daughter. They had a 12-year-old daughter, and they would homeschool her. And they invited Ruben to come for Bible studies. Well, all of a sudden, Sunday night, I get a phone call from my friend Ruben, and Ruben says, hey, you should come to these Bible studies on Sunday nights. And I'm thinking, I spent all day Saturday in church, another Bible study on Sunday. I don't think so. And he said, well, they feed us. And I said, okay, I'm in. And so every Sunday night, this humble couple, they would let us in. We would, of course, study the Bible, but then they'd feed us. They gave us everything that they had, and they had very little. I had so much, I gave them nothing. But because not only did they demonstrate this kind of love to me, we had totally different cultures. They didn't even relate to us. They didn't even know that they had 3 homosexuals in their living room every Sunday night. But you know what? They invested in us. And I have pictures to show you this afternoon of us playing in a park where we did a pyramid and goofing around and having a good time. And you know what? We started to become that family. That we weren't just studying the Bible as a checklist Christian to make sure that we had souls for the kingdom, but rather they were investing in me. When it was my birthday, they made me a birthday cake. When I was going out of town, they would take care of my Chihuahua, my little gay dog, about 6 pounds, right? So one day, Ezekiel said to his wife, after we'd been studying at their house for a few months, Gladys, his wife, looked at him and she said, do you think they're gay? And I don't know how they missed it for so long, but anyway. Her husband looked at her and he said, I don't know, how would I know? And she said, should we be concerned about our 12-year-old daughter? And he said something so profound. He said, the blood of Jesus that was shed for us was shed for them. And she said, I'm so glad you said that because I've really learned to love them. And you know what? That was just the beginning of this relationship that we had. Again, I was this hotshot hairdresser, and they were this humble couple. But you know what? We ended up moving to Tennessee after 9/11. They lived with me for several months until they found their home. I sold my house 3.5 years ago. They designated a house or a room in their house that's for me. So whenever I'm in town, I can stay with them. As a matter of fact, that little girl, I know, right? Thank you. That little girl grew up. She's a gorgeous. She's not even pretty. She's just drop dead gorgeous. She went to Southern. She wanted to be a nurse. She met this boy that wanted to be a pastor. And he came up to her and he wanted to ask for her hand in marriage. And because of the relationship that I've had with this family, that we had absolutely nothing in common other than our God, that we had created this family, she said to him, she said, if you want to marry me, you have to ask my dad and my Carducci for permission. I know, right? I know. So anyway, they did get married. This couple now have 2 beautiful children. But before she had her second child, she asked me this. She called me on the phone and she said, Mike, are you going to be in Buffalo, New York, anytime soon? And I said, well, I can be. And she said, I want to know if you'll be here for the birth of my baby. And I said, yeah, I'll try. And she said, is it okay? Will you take care of my son Sebastian, while I'm in the hospital with my husband? And I said, sure, yeah, I'll watch Sebastian. I go, but I don't do diapers. And she said, oh, well, that changes everything, because if you don't change diapers, I'll have to find somebody else. And I said, well, Michelle, I really said that to make sure that you would know that you could trust me with your son. And she said, Mike, I have never thought that way of you. And she said, I have known you for almost 20 years. And she said, I never would have asked you if that even came into my mind. How beautiful that this family was willing to just show me what Christ-like love was and not judge me according to my past, but to love me and to be patient with me and to walk this out with me, even to the point where we're still friends today. Isn't that what the church needs to experience today? And so, again, I just want to implore you that if the Holy Spirit is speaking to your heart, remember, It's not the traditions of Adventism. It's not the traditions of Christianity that is going to get you to heaven. It's about, are those principles the same principles that you believe in private that you also exemplify when you're in public? And if you're not there yet, I understand. You know, we all struggle with something. I was talking to my friend Willie at breakfast, and I was talking about the fact that, you know, just a few months ago, the Lord showed me that I trifle with him. And the Bible was talking about how, you know, not to trifle with God. And I'm thinking to myself, who would be so brazen as to trifle with God? And the Lord said, how about you? Meaning me. And as I sat there and I started to look at my life, how many times do I trifle with God? Do I postpone my devotion? Or do I cut my time short in my prayer time? How many times do I, you know, sit there and think, how close can I get to the fire without getting burned and still hold on to the hand of God? Why do I trifle with God when really my only safety is in His presence? Can I get a witness? So again, if you feel the Holy Spirit, not just convicting you, because conviction can be a good thing, but He's not angry, He's not mad, because remember, I told you young people today that you have the right to choose whatever you want, but we cannot escape the consequences of those choices. And if it's your desire to choose to stop trifling with God today, if you recognize that it's your salvation that we're talking about each and every day and each and every Sabbath that we come together, if it's your desire to be in heaven together and to quit trifling with God, would you just stand with me? And it's not a corporate call, and it has to be an individual thing. Some of you may already be doing what God is asking you to do. I get it. But if you're like me, and you still find that some of those things still call your name, I guarantee you that it's the Holy Spirit that gave you the power to stand today. I remember that day when I gave my heart to the Lord. I said to the Lord, I said, I give you my heart, but I can't go up there. And my next conscious thought as I was standing in front, I believe the minute that I gave my heart to the Lord, that He sent 2 angels, one on either side of me, to march me to the front. So I believe it's the Holy Spirit that gives us the ability to stand. And by standing, it means nothing to me. I can't save you. I can't help you. But by standing up, you have answered the call of the Holy Spirit saying, come on, let's make it your salvation. Let's pray together. Father, we stand in front of you. And we want to let you know, Lord, that even as weak and as frail as we are, those of us that have fallen, those of us that are addicted, those of us that still struggle, Lord, is there still some mercy left for us? And I know that there is, Lord, because you said in 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, that you are faithful and just, not only to forgive, but also to cleanse from all unrighteousness. And so, Lord, there's no statute of limitations on that. And as we come to you as we are, if we do our part, if we work out our salvation with fear and trembling, we just come before you as we are, broken and addicted. You promise, Lord, to take us where we are, and that you can finish this work that you've started in each one of us. I give you permission. And that's simply all you're looking for. Is that for those of us in the audience that would just look up to you, Lord, and say, Lord, I give you permission to take this life, Lord. Help me, Lord, to stop trifling with you. Help me, Lord, to hate sin so perfectly that I would be ready on that day that you come to take me home. And then, Lord, as I start to get this connection to you, then let me also be a connection to my neighbor who's beside me. Let me exemplify that. Let my children see you working in my life. Let me experience you so powerfully, Lord, that my children would be drawn to me, to you. Let it start not only with me, Lord, but let it also start with the men in this church. And as the men surrender their issues and whatever they're going through, then let the women experience that healing too, because the men are the example of Christ in the home. And then as the women are getting 100% of their husbands as they deserve, then let the children get 100% of their mothers as they need. And then, Lord, the family unit will truly heal, and then we will be a beacon of light for all those that come into our presence. Start with me, Lord, individually, and let that just filter down, Lord, until not one is not drenched from the Holy Spirit and the power of your salvation. And until that day, Lord, keep us strong, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for your message, Michael. Before the choir comes up to do our closing song, let's collect our tithes and offering. I'll direct your attention to the bulletin in front of you. If you don't have one, we also send out digital copies every week. You will see that every month we need $11,173, and we're also in the middle of a building project. So I'm not here to guilt you all, but I'm here to encourage you that just as the Lord has blessed us, we are able to bless others in return. And also, if you want to mark your envelopes to specific ministries, loose offering for this week will go to local church budget, and then we also have the envelopes for coming out ministries. So I'm going to go ahead and invite our deacons to stand up. We'll have prayer, and then as they're collecting the offerings, the choir will come up, and once Molly is done, we'll do the closing song. Gracious God, we thank you for your rich blessings that you pour out on us each and every day, and maybe sometimes we don't even realize it. Lord, this is just one way to give back. We know we can show our appreciation through our talents, Lord, our use of time, the way we treat others, and also, Lord, by contributing to the storehouse. And so, Lord, we just ask that you give us generous hearts, and as you have blessed us, may we continue to bless your work and to bless others. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name we all said, amen. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our service. We'll see you all in the gym for lunch. Thank you, choir. Thank you, Michael. And our last session will be at 3 o'clock this afternoon here in the church. Happy Sabbath, everyone.